Welcome to YouTube channel Bookwise with Fishel. Today, we're diving into a book that, well, it didn't just change parenting advice, it fundamentally reshaped how generations thought about raising kids.
You're talking about Dr. Benjamin Spock's The Common Sense Book of Baby and Childcare, a genuine phenomenon from 1946 onwards.
Exactly. And to really get why it was such a bombshell, you kind of have to picture what came before, right?
Oh, absolutely. Pre-1946, the parenting world was, well, starkly different. Think rigid, think authoritarian. Figures like Dr. L. Emmett Holt were the standard bearers.
And their advice sounds almost shocking today. It was incredibly mechanical.
Totally. Parents were basically told to treat babies like little machines, feed them strictly every 4 hours, on the dot. Hungry before then, too bad. Crying, let them cry.
And cuddles, affection.
Discourage. Seriously, the fear was that showing too much affection would spoil the child, make them dependent, weak. Discipline was cold, swift, and demanded absolute obedience, no questions asked.
It sounds like it was all driven by fear. Fear of messing up, fear of the expert's judgment.
Precisely. Fear of spoiling, fear of not sticking to the schedule. It completely ignored the, basic human need for warmth, for connection. Then comes Dr. Spock.
A pediatrician, but he'd also studied psychoanalysis, which feels important here.
Crucial. He looked at this cold, mechanistic approach and just saw how wrong it felt, how damaging it could be, and he offered a radical alternative.
Which he boiled down into this one iconic sentence, the line that basically launched a million parenting shifts.
Trust yourself. You know more than you think you do.
Wow. Just hearing it now, you can feel the weight lifting off parents' shoulders.
It was revolutionary. It was like official permission to ditch the rigid rule books and actually listen to your own heart, your own intuition about your child. It brought the authority back home.
So that's our plan for today. We're going to trace Spock's core ideas, flexibility, empathy, common sense, right through from infancy to adolescence.
Yeah, looking at how he systematically challenged those old rules and really advocated for this partnership model between parent and child.
Let's see how it unfolded. Okay, so starting at the beginning, the absolute bedrock of Spock's whole philosophy. What's the first big idea?
It all starts with this. Every child is an individual. Full stop. There's no single magic formula.
Which sounds obvious now, maybe, but back then.
Completely radical. The old guard assumed all babies were basically the same, needing the exact same thing at the exact same time. Spock flipped that entirely.
He said the parent's job wasn't to force the kid into a preset mold.
Exactly. It was to observe, to understand the specific child, their unique temperament, how fast they grow, their sleep patterns, their emotional triggers. Yeah. Really see them.
And once you see them as an individual, you become the expert on them.
Right. Your own common sense, guided by observation, becomes the best formula.
And what fuels this healthy development, according to Spock?
Love, but not love as like a treat you give out for good behavior.
Okay, how did he define it differently?
He saw love as the absolute essential fuel for growth. Think of it like emotional nutrition. It wasn't about indulgence, it was fundamental.
And how did that connect to the whole don't spoil the baby thing?
Well, he used his psychoanalytic background here. He argued that consistent, unconditional love builds this deep sense of security in a child.
Okay.
And paradoxically, it's that security that actually allows them to become independent. If they're not constantly anxious about whether they're loved, it feels safe enough to explore the world, to be curious, to try things.
Whereas the old fear-based parenting
Stunts that. It makes kids anxious, less creative, always looking over their shoulder, metaphorically speaking.
This naturally leads away from that old command and obey style.
Definitely. He pushed for what he called the partnership model.
Partnership, implying equality.
In learning, yes.
Yeah.
That was the fascinating part. Spock really believed parents learn from their children just as much as children learn from parents. It makes the home this dynamic place of mutual growth.
That's a huge shift.
And maybe the most radical part of this partnership idea, especially for 1946, was his view on fathers.
Right, because back then, the dad's role was pretty much just bringing home the paycheck.
Yeah, the provider role. Spock really challenged that. He insisted fathers needed to be involved in the day-to-day emotional nurturing, the actual care of the baby and child, not just babysitting, but real engagement.
He saw that kids need both parents emotionally present.
Absolutely. And he was laying the groundwork way back then for the kind of co-parenting and shared responsibilities that we talk about much more openly today.
Yeah.
He wanted both parents to feel confident together.
Okay, let's get practical. Infant care. Feeding. The old way was that rigid 4-hour schedule. What was Spock's revolution there?
Simple yet massive, feeding on demand.
So feed the baby when they seem hungry?
Basically, yes. He pointed out the obvious physiological fact. Babies aren't clocks. Their metabolisms differ. They have growth spurts. You can't dictate hunger with a timer.
So look for the cues.
Exactly. Rooting, sucking motions, a certain alertness, specific types of cries. These are the baby signals. He taught parents to read their baby, not the clock. Trying to force a schedule just creates stress for everyone and can actually mess up digestion. His advice was essentially, if the baby's healthy and growing, trust their signals.
And this idea of listening extends to crying, too. The old view was that crying after feeding was, what, manipulation?
Yeah, or just being spoiled.
Yeah.
Spock completely reframed it. Crying, he said, is the baby's only language. It's communication. Meaning they're trying to tell you something. They're hungry or lonely or scared or uncomfortable. It's a distress signal, not a plot to annoy you.
And the response?
Respond quickly. He argued this builds fundamental trust. Baby cries, loving parent responds. The baby learns the world is safe and predictable, that their needs matter.
And not responding. Letting them cry it out for long periods.
He warned against that. Extended distress doesn't teach independence. It floods the baby's system with stress hormones and erodes that core trust, potentially leading to long-term anxiety.
So, picking up the crying baby, soothing them. That wasn't spoiling.
Not at all. It was psychologically essential. It was meeting a fundamental need for security and connection.
This leads right into sleep. The whole cry it out debate was already brewing, wasn't it? How did Spock handle that?
He advocated for moderation. He acknowledged, yes, babies do need to learn to self-soothe eventually, and a little bit of fussing before sleep isn't unusual. But he was strongly against letting babies endure severe, prolonged distress. He understood that infant sleep patterns are naturally irregular. Trying to force rigid sleep training too early often backfires.
So what did he suggest instead?
Focus on creating a calm, predictable bedtime routine, bath, book, song, whatever works for the family. But let the routine emerge naturally, fitting the baby's rhythms and the family's life. Avoid rigid regimentation that just stresses everyone out.
The goal isn't necessarily sleeping through the night at 6 weeks.
No. The goal is a calm, rested family. Consistency provides security, not rigid schedules.
And one last thing for this day, something that feels really important. He spoke directly to the parents' own feelings.
Yes. This was huge. He normalized the exhaustion, the frustration, even the occasional resentment that comes with parenting.
Which must have been such a relief.
Immense. Before, if you felt those things, you felt like a failure. Spock essentially said, hey, this is incredibly hard work. It's okay to feel overwhelmed sometimes. He removed that crushing expectation of perfection.
And he actively encouraged self-care for parents.
Absolutely. He stressed that rest, good food, getting a break, these aren't selfish luxuries. They're essential to avoid burnout, to stay patient, to be the responsive parent your child needs.
So the aim isn't perfection.
Not at all. It's confidence. It's trusting your love and your ability to adapt. That's far more important than following every rule perfectly.
It really is about finding that balance, isn't it? Science, intuition, love. Okay, before we tackle the toddler tornado, let's just pause for a second. If you're finding this exploration helpful, please do like, share, and subscribe to Bookwise with Vishal. It really helps us keep these conversations going.
Okay, moving on. Toddlerhood. Ages, say 1 to 3. And, everything shifts. The generally cooperative baby suddenly becomes, well, a force of nature.
The age of no, it's a massive psychological change, right? The child starts asserting their independence, their curiosity explodes. Spock didn't see this constant no, the resistance, as just defiance, did he?
No, he framed it as a developmental necessity. It's the child's first big declaration of, I am me, I am separate from you. They have to test the boundaries to figure out where they are.
So pushing back isn't necessarily being naughty.
Not in the way we often think. It's exploration. They're figuring out their own will, their own power, how the world responds to them. Spock urged parents to see it as essential learning, not just rebellion.
Which means discipline needs a complete rethink from the old ways. For Spock, it wasn't about punishment, was it?
Not primarily. He saw discipline as education, a slow, steady process of helping the child internalize right and wrong, develop self-control.
So less about forcing obedience, more about teaching understanding.
Exactly. He was strongly against harsh punishments, especially physical ones. His approach was built on consistency, calm explanations, even simple ones, and crucially, avoiding shame or humiliation.
He used that great analogy, the fence around a playground.
Yeah, that captures it perfectly. The parent's job is to build a clear, strong fence. Those are the non-negotiable boundaries for safety and respect. But inside that fence, the child needs freedom to run, explore, choose, even stumble a bit.
So authority comes from clarity and respect, not fear.
That's the core idea. Firmness, yes. Harshness, no.
Okay, but staying calm and firm feels almost impossible when you're facing a tantrum, the classic toddler meltdown.
Ah, yes. The tantrum. Spock saw these as basically an emotional short circuit. The toddler is overwhelmed by a big feeling, anger, frustration, disappointment, but they just don't have the words or the self-control yet to handle it. So, boom.
And his advice for parents caught in the storm.
Super practical. First, safety. Make sure the child isn't going to hurt themselves or anyone else. Second, the parent stays calm. Absolutely crucial. Don't feed the fire. Avoid giving the tantrum itself power.
Okay, here's the tricky part.
Yeah.
How do you ignore the tantrum without ignoring the child?
That is the key distinction. You don't engage with the kicking and screaming. You might step back slightly. You don't yell back. You don't plead. You definitely don't give in to whatever demand triggered it. That just reinforces the behavior.
Right.
But the moment the storm starts to pass, even a little, you reconnect. You offer comfort. And then, importantly, you help them put words to it later. Wow, you were really mad that playtime was over.
So reacting calmly teaches them tantrums don't work, while reconnecting shows your love is still there.
Exactly. It teaches self-regulation over time, not through punishment, but through experience and connection.
Now, this age often brings in another big emotional challenge: sibling jealousy, especially when a new baby arrives.
Yeah, Spock was very insightful about this. He saw jealousy as basically the older child's fear of losing their parents' love. They see the new baby as competition for a limited resource, your attention and affection.
Makes sense. So what's the remedy?
Proactive inclusion and reassurance. Let the older child help with the baby in small ways, making them feel involved. But also, and this is vital carve-out, dedicated one-on-one time just for the older child. Regular special time sends the message, your place is secure, my love for you hasn't changed.
Another huge milestone: toilet training. Spock's approach here must have felt like a breath of fresh air after the earlier, often shame-based methods.
Oh, massively. His central message was, readiness is everything. Forget age milestones. Trying to force it before the child shows genuine physical and psychological signs of readiness, usually somewhere between 2 and 3, but it varies hugely. Just creates stress, resistance, anxiety. It can even backfire physically.
So relax, wait for the signs.
Yes. Keep it low pressure, gradual, and absolutely free of shame or punishment for accidents. Accidents are just part of learning. Focus on encouragement, positive reinforcement for effort, not scolding.
We mentioned giving words to feelings with babies, but that becomes even more critical now with toddlers' bigger emotions.
Absolutely essential. The parent needs to be the emotion translator. You're feeling frustrated because that toy isn't working. It looks like your sad mummy has to go to work.
Why is that labeling so important?
It helps a child understand their own internal world, which can feel chaotic and overwhelming. Giving it a name makes it less scary, more manageable. It builds the foundation for emotional intelligence, empathy, self-awareness later on.
And finally, for this stage, Spock really championed the importance of play.
Yes, he famously said, play is the child's work. It's not just killing time.
It's how they learn.
It's how they learn everything. Motor skills, coordination, imagination, social skills like sharing and negotiating, problem solving. It all happens through play.
Did he have thoughts on the type of play?
He favored unstructured play. Simple stuff, blocks, sand, water, dress-up clothes. Things that let the child's imagination drive the action, rather than toys that dictate the play. And he cautioned parents against constantly directing the play. Be a companion, follow their lead, let them discover.
Okay, let's move into part 3. We're looking at the preschool and early school years now, roughly ages 3 to 10. The focus shifts towards really building character, competence, understanding the wider world.
Spock called the preschool years the golden age of imagination, which is lovely, but it's also the age of endless questions, the why phase on steroids.
Oh yes, little philosophers. Their curiosity just explodes, and Spock's advice was clear: honor those questions. Don't dismiss them, even if they seem silly or difficult.
Why is that so important? Because dismissing them shuts down that natural curiosity, that budding scientific spirit. He urged parents to answer honestly but simply in age-appropriate ways. If they ask about death, you tell the truth gently. If they ask where babies come from, you give a simple, factual answer.
And it's okay to say, I don't know.
Absolutely. That models intellectual humility. The goal is to fuel their desire to learn, not necessarily to have all the answers yourself.
This growing ability to reason also means discipline changes again, right? It's not just boundaries anymore.
Right. Now you start incorporating reasoning before consequences whenever possible. The child's conscience is really starting to develop, grounded in fairness and empathy.
And Spock was a big fan of natural consequences here.
Huge fan. Whenever it's safe, let the logical outcome of an action be the teacher. It's usually far more effective than a lecture. Forget your coat, you'll feel cold. Don't put your toys away, you might not find them later. They internalize those lessons deeply.
But what about situations where the consequence isn't immediate or obvious, like lying or breaking a significant family rule? How do you handle correction then, without resorting to shame?
That's where the concept of making amends becomes key. First, you calmly address the behavior, make sure the child understands why it was wrong and its impact. But then, crucially, you give them a chance to repair the harm.
How?
Maybe a sincere apology, helping to fix something that got broken, doing a chore to make up for something. It's about restoring balance and taking responsibility. This builds conscience. Shame just makes kids hide or feel worthless.
And modeling is key here too, right? Parents admitting their own mistakes.
Essential. If you mess up, apologize to your child. It shows them fairness is real, that everyone makes mistakes, and that taking responsibility is what matters. It validates their own sense of justice.
This feels relevant to today's pressures pushing academics really early. Spock warned against this way back when.
He did, and it's incredibly relevant now. His advice was clear. Let readiness lead the way. Pushing kids to read or do complex math before they're developmentally ready and genuinely interested often creates anxiety. It makes learning feel like pressure, not discovery.
And he wasn't a fan of packing kids' schedules either.
No, he was quite critical of overscheduling. He famously said, "A crowded childhood robs the imagination of air. Kids need unstructured downtime, time to just be, to daydream, to mess around. That's where deep creativity and thinking often happen."
Let's touch on a couple of specific issues for this age. First, aggression hitting, shouting. How did Spock suggest handling that?
He saw it mostly as a sign of immaturity or frustration, not necessarily a deep moral failing. The parent's job is to model peaceful conflict resolution.
So what does that look like?
First, calmly stop the aggressive behavior. Then, label the feeling. "I see you're really angry your brother took your toy." Then, suggest or help them find an acceptable alternative. Use your words, or let's take a break. Importantly, he argued physical punishment is counterproductive here, because it teaches the child that hitting is an acceptable way for bigger people to solve problems. It sends the completely wrong message.
Okay, and the other big one, sex education. Spock was pretty bold on this for his time.
Exceptionally bold. He insisted parents must give truthful, age-appropriate answers to questions about bodies, babies, sexuality. No dodging, no fairy tales, no shame.
Why was honesty so critical?
Because secrecy or lying creates confusion and anxiety. It makes the topic seem dirty or forbidden. Spock believed delivering information calmly, factually, conveyed that sexuality is a natural, healthy part of life. His famous line, "Knowledge is the ally of innocence, not its enemy. Informed kids are safer kids."
So, across this whole stage, the underlying goal is building healthy self-esteem.
Yeah.
What did Spock see as the key ingredients for that?
He identified a few core things. 1, that consistent unconditional love we talked about earlier. 2, having achievable expectations, don't set kids up to constantly fail. 3, and this is important, recognizing and praising effort and progress, not just perfect results or winning.
And fostering competence.
Yes, letting them feel capable. Encourage autonomy. Let them make age-appropriate choices, handle small tasks independently, even face minor, safe consequences. That builds real confidence way more effectively than helicopter parenting or empty praise.
Okay, we've navigated infancy, toddlerhood, the school years. Now we hit the final stage in Spock's framework, adolescence. He called this a natural transformation, the time when a child begins to claim his own soul.
It's a profound way to put it. And it signals the biggest shift for the parent. You have to consciously transition from being the primary authority figure to more of a guide, a consultant.
It's often called the second birth, right? This need for the teen to separate psychologically, to form their own identity.
Exactly. And that creates this inherent paradox. Teenagers desperately crave freedom and independence, yet developmentally they're often not fully equipped for it. They still need structure, reassurance, a safe harbor.
So that pulling away, the need for privacy, the challenging of rules, parents shouldn't take it personally.
Ideally, no. Spock stressed that it's usually not rejection of the parent, but necessary identity testing. They're figuring out who they are, separate from the family unit. The parent's job, he said, is to remain a harbor, a safe place they know they can always return to.
This obviously requires a total overhaul of discipline strategies. You can't just lay down the law anymore. Spock talked about negotiated boundaries.
Yes. External control has to start shifting towards internal self-discipline, and negotiation is key. Arbitrary, unexplained rules often just provoke rebellion at this age, but no rules at all can lead to anxiety and poor choices.
So how do you actually negotiate, say, a curfew with a teenager who thinks they shouldn't have one?
It has to come from a place of mutual respect and dialogue. The key is framing rules about curfews, driving, parties, whatever, primarily as concerns for their safety and well-being, not just parental power. You have to ditch the "because I said so."
Explaining the reasoning behind the rule.
Yes, genuinely. We worry when you're out late because, or these driving rules are about keeping you and others safe because. Even if they don't like the rule, understanding the loving concern behind it makes it easier to accept or at least tolerate.
Trust becomes the absolute linchpin here, doesn't it? Spock saw it as something earned, a two-way street.
Absolutely central. The system he advocated was logical and flexible. When a teen demonstrates responsibility and reliability, you gradually expand their freedom.
And if they break that trust, break a major rule.
Then you need to restrict that freedom, but proportionally and logically tied to the mistake. Not out of anger, but as a clear consequence. And crucially, Spock emphasized, you always leave the door open for recovery. It's about teaching responsibility, not permanent punishment or resentment.
What about the power of peers? It's a huge parental anxiety during adolescence, losing your kid to their friends.
Spock actually saw peer relationships as essential, not inherently dangerous if the foundation of family values is already strong. Peers are the testing ground for loyalty, social skills, navigating relationships outside the family nest. It's necessary practice.
So what's a parent's role regarding peers?
Listen more, lecture less. Offer understanding, not constant advice. And critically, avoid projecting your own ambitions or anxieties onto them. Let their choices about friends, interests, future paths come from their curiosity, not your expectations.
The emotional intensity ramps up to first loves, heartbreaks, navigating emerging sexuality. How does Spock advise parents to handle that?
With respect, dismissing a teen's intense feelings about a relationship, whether it's joy or devastation, as puppy love or silly, is deeply invalidating. You have to acknowledge the realness of their emotions.
And conversations about sex.
Continue the honest, age-appropriate approach. But now the focus shifts more towards the ethical dimensions, respect, consent, responsibility in relationships, emotional consequences. Again, knowledge and open communication, not shame or silence, are the best protection.
This all culminates in what might be the hardest part for the parent, what Spock called their education and letting go.
Yes, this is the ultimate parental challenge. It requires immense emotional growth from the parent themselves. Spock actually talked about different types of parental love needed across the lifespan.
Oh, interesting. Can we break those down? What are the types?
He identified 3 main forms. First, there's nurturing love. This dominates infancy. It's unconditional, protective, focused on meeting basic needs, providing that fundamental security, answering the cry, offering comfort.
Okay, that makes sense for babies. What comes next?
As the child grows, it needs to shift to guiding love. This is the love that sets boundaries, teaches right from wrong, fosters conscience, holds them accountable. It's about instruction, discipline through fairness, modeling values. This is dominant through childhood.
And the final stage, the one for adolescence.
That's the releasing love. This is the hardest, most courageous form. It means trusting the foundation you've built. It means stepping back, allowing the teen to make their own choices, even their own mistakes, as long as they're not catastrophic. It's consciously transitioning from director to consultant.
Wow. Releasing love, that sounds incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Especially if you see your teen heading towards a mistake. Did Spock offer any comfort or rationale for parents struggling with that?
He acknowledged it takes enormous courage. The comfort, he suggested, lies in trusting the process. If the nurturing and guiding phases were done with love and consistency, the young person likely has the internal compass they need. And the ultimate reward isn't just launching them successfully.
What is it then?
It's when that grown child chooses to come back to you, seeking advice or connection, not out of duty but affection. That's the sign of a relationship built on enduring trust and respect. That's the payoff for the courage of letting go.
It really comes back to those core themes, doesn't it? Trust, respect, adapting to the child's changing needs. That's why Spock's book had such staying power. He replaced that old, rigid authoritarianism with empathy.
Exactly. He understood that rules and expert advice are useful, but they have to be filtered through love and common sense. If the rules damage the parent-child bond or undermine the parent's confidence, they're not working. His genius was validating the parent's own intuition.
So if we boil it all down, what are the absolute key takeaways for listeners today? The principles that still hold true, maybe three main ones.
Okay, yeah. First, trust your instincts. You know your child better than anyone. Let that knowledge guide you. Second, model the behavior you want to see. Kids learn far more from watching you how you handle frustration, admit mistakes, treat others than from lectures.
Be the example. And the third.
Parenthood is continual learning. Except that you won't be perfect. It requires humility, flexibility, and remembering that consistent, adaptable love is what matters most. Spock gave parents permission to be human.
That permission feels like maybe his greatest gift.
I think so. Understanding that it's this ongoing dance, nurturing, guiding, and finally releasing that makes it such a profoundly human journey.
Well, this has been a really rich exploration of a book that truly shaped modern parenting. Before we sign off, just a reminder, if you enjoyed this, please like, share, and subscribe to Bookwise with Vishal. It helps us keep bringing these deep dives to you.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in and exploring Spock with us.
Now, we always like to leave you with something to think about. Spock famously told parents to trust themselves over rigid expert rules. But think about today. We have this explosion of specialized knowledge, neuroscience, sleep science, developmental psychology. So here's the question. Is simply trusting your instincts still the best advice in 2024? Or does the sheer volume of complex information available now demand a new kind of reliance on expert guidance, perhaps integrated differently? Something to ponder. And finally, which book would you love to hear summarized next? Drop your suggestion in the comments. Your pick might be featured in the next episode.